Listening to BearatNight podcast with your host, Jurassic Parker.
Where are you? What state are you in?
I'm in Connecticut.
You're in Connecticut. Okay.
Yes, one of the most boring spots in the world.
I was gonna say, if you're like in Georgia, I'm like, come on by, man. But
oh man, it would be. Oh man, I'll hold you to it if I ever in town. We just start. Hey guys, I'm sorry. We are here. This is the BearatNight podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages and non-binary. This is the BearatNight podcast. I'm a little. I'm trying my best not to fanboy out right now, because I have here somebody who's been monumental in my childhood. I know for sure, and I know plenty of yours. So, and I finally found the face to go with the stuff that I grew up watching, and I'm a lover of behind the scenes work. I love VFX. I love makeup. I can never learn how to do it. I can never figure out in my mind how to do it myself. But I love other people that do the time, that put the work in and put the time in. I love practical effects. And also, you guys know, I love Power Rangers. So, out of all the many things that we talk about on this show, Power Rangers is like the mainstay that keeps me going, and I love it so much. And you guys know, I got the toys behind me. I got all that stuff, the big old red Power Rangers stuff right now. But this man, he put that stuff together behind the scenes. The morph sequences that we know and love, the White Ranger power, Blue Ranger power, all that, the Red Dragon Thunderzord power, that stuff. Yes, this man right here, of many talents. Rick Shick, thank you so much, sir, from coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I didn't even think you was going to text me back right away, but man, this is such an honor to have you on.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
And like I said, I love VFX. I love behind the work, the behind the scenes. Like,
yeah, I love all that stuff too. I geek out over that. Yeah.
Like I've lost count how many times I watched the Star Wars documentary just to see how they made everything.
Right.
You know, I've watched it so many times over the years. So anything I watch, a movie or anything, I always want to know how they make it. How did they do this scene? Like I'm always on YouTube searching and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what actually got me into this, was being so interested in behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
When you say the behind the scenes of Star Wars, I remember, because I saw Star Wars in the theater when it first came out in the 80s or 70s, 80s. And I was just like crazy. I made my dad come see Return of the Jedi twice with me, just because I'm like, how do they do so many layers of stuff? And then when I saw the documentaries, at that point, I was a little bit sad, because I'm like, wait, this didn't happen on some planet far away. Like to see that, it's like real humans doing stuff. I was like, it's a little disappointing. But that was like the kid in me. But ever since then, it's like I love behind the scenes stuff too. So I'm with you on that.
I've always been fascinated with that. I'm such a practical effects person. When it comes to things, even to this day, I know things are like, on their way out, and got so many things, that we use now, CGI and stuff with that, and now AI, who knows what's going to happen with that. Yeah. But it's just something about practical effects, like the things of, we don't have the budget to do this and that, so what other ways can we work around it to get the same visuals? And we might just do it even better and make it look even better than the CGI. Because somehow the practical effects always hold up way better. Over the years than the CGI. Like,
I mean, it's not a Power Ranger thing, but in my more recent past, I was approached to do a shot for a show on, I believe it's on Apple, called City on Fire.
Okay.
And they needed a dead exotic African bird called a blue Turako. And it was supposed to be like in New York and on the sidewalk, and someone shot the bird, and they're like looking at it and they're like, oh, and they're sad about it. And they didn't know how to do it. And so my company, like, we gave them a bid, and it was like $70,000 to do it in CG and make a bird, and kid needs to poke it with a stick. And so there has to be interactivity with the stick and the feathers and stuff. And, you have to do like a soft body deformation and, get all the lighting right and get the model. And there's not a blue Turako model, so you'd have to make one. And my idea was, well, maybe it's kind of like a blue Turako, which was the kind of bird they wanted. It's kind of like a pheasant. Maybe I could get a pheasant that's dead and paint it blue and like make it look like a blue Turako. And then I can shoot it in my backyard and poke it with a stick. Like, I mean, shoot it with the camera because it'd already be dead. And they're like, well, no, you can't kill a bird for this. And it's like, well, what if I eat it? What if I promise you when I'm done with the shoot, I eat it and it's just my dinner and I'm like playing my dinner. Anyway, well, hold on, I can go grab it.
Oh, wow.
Someone in the office found a stuffed blue Turako online. So this is the bird that they wanted. They found a stuffed one, and you can see I've mounted it back on the stick, but there were wires in it to hold the wings in. So I got the wires out. I softened up the neck. I opened up the mouth. I sculpted a little tongue and put it in there. I sculpted eyelids that are half closed. So I took what was once a live bird, turned into a stuffed animal, and I turned it back into a dead animal.
Yeah.
With a hole. There's like foam in here, and I poured blood in there. So I made it all loosey-goosey again. I got it softened up so I could shoot it in my backyard, and I could actually poke it with a stick, and it would react like, like the head would wiggle,
right.
The body would wiggle a little bit. And so it's funny because we ended up going a totally practical method to get the shot done. Like when you were saying that you love practical,
yes.
Me too. Like that's like people have different, you have different tools in your toolbox. My hammer is, can I do it for real?
Right.
Is there a way to do it for real first and then put it into the scene before going to CG? And like CG is great when you need it,
right?
But you don't always need it.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Like I'm still a sucker for like 80s movies. Like the what is it? It's not it. What's the Kurt Russell and
oh my gosh, The Thing.
The Thing, yes.
Oh man, so good.
Still to this day,
yeah.
The not even just the chest burst. The chest burst is cool, but when the thing is like the head morphs into like a spider type creature, yes, it is just, and on its own, it's just all practical. They're doing stuff behind the scenes, but it's all practical. Versus when they did like a similar treatment with like an updated version of the movie, like, and it's still, and then after like a few years, it didn't hold up because CGI, technology's changed every year it changes.
Right, yep.
And that's also as TVs, like we get HD 4K, it doesn't hold up. But if you go back to that, it still holds up. It's still, you can still see it. It looks great.
It does. It's incredible work. Yeah, now, I love that.
I don't want to go too much, but how did it all start for you? Like you said that you watched Star Wars and it got you into learning everything from there. What got you, like, what was like the day one? What was how everything's your history?
I would say that the biggest turning point where it's like, this could actually be a career. And like before this point, there were moments leading up to it, but the light bulb click was after seeing RoboCop 2. And the stop motion fight and the cut between the live action actor and then the puppet jumping on the giant Kane robot.
Yes.
It cuts so well. It looks so good. So I was in college at the time and I found a magazine called Cinefex. and it had an article on RoboCop 2, and I was just like, oh, I just like, devoured that, just reading about it. And then I just then I subscribed to the Cinefex just to keep up with film. But that's when I was like, I think this is what I want to do. I think I want to make movies. And before that, it was like when I was a little kid, I remember seeing Clash of the Titans in theaters, and just the Medusa scene and the Scorpions. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I must have seen that movie. I saw it dozens of times the year it came out. And like my next door neighbor and I were little kids. We would walk along the highway to the movie theater and then back home, and we'd like just go again. Like I had it was like $1 to go see it. So I was just enamored with the effects in that movie. And it's funny because the stop motion still holds up in that. It really does. The compositing isn't very good. Like I remember the water splashing over people, and like those scenes are a little iffy. And like Poseidon,
yes,
he watches the Kraken go by. Like it's like, oh, that's not quite so great. But the stop motion's incredible. So that had a big impact on me. Mm-hmm. I always like visual effects. I do recall seeing young Sherlock Holmes, which was the first fully CGI character. Yeah, the stained glass knight who jumps out of the window, and the little muffin creatures, like I think it's pastries that come to life on Watson's chest. Like, and the integration of the puppets and the CG, it was so good. And then Sam Raimi, I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. Yes. The fact that he was from Michigan, and it's like Evil Dead 2, that just rocked our world when that came out. That was so good. We just have that on repeat at my friend's house, and we're like playing pool in his basement. We're not even watching the movie anymore, but we're just saying all the lines. And the puppetry in that too, the artistry in making that movie hilarious and gross at the same time. Yeah. It's like, well, this guy went to, he's from Michigan and he's making movies. Maybe I can make movies, or at least maybe I can help people make movies. I don't know. Right. So like all that led up to RoboCop 2 with like, you know what? I think this is what I want to do.
Wow. And it took me a long time. I think it was a few years when I was younger to try to understand that Evil Dead 2 was not exactly a sequel, but also a remake at the same time. Because I tried to figure out why we're watching. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But it seemed better. But it just
the first one's more scary than funny.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it had a couple of funny moments, but it's scary. And the second one's just hilarious.
Yeah.
And the first one doesn't even focus on Bruce Campbell.
It was more of the group.
He's just the dumbest one who ends up surviving.
He was the lucky one. That was
through his own dumb luck. Yeah, but I mean, he was truly the hero in the second one.
And then, oh my God, then the mega big guy in the third movie, Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah.
Then then he like solidified he was the badass.
Yeah, and when the third one came out, I was in LA at that time already. So I was in Hollywood. I think we might have been working on Power Rangers at that point. I can't recall if I was almost in, working in the industry or if I was just fanboying around at that time. But there was a signing at a poster shop, and I've got a Bruce Campbell signed one sheet.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
I've got an Evil Dead poster on the behind that you. Well, here I got an Evil Dead poster signed by Sam Raimi over there.
Oh, nice.
Next to my 1986 Spider-Man movie.
I'm sorry. I keep looking at Mojo Jojo. Is that is that a mask? What is it? A puppet?
No, it's a costume. It's a giant head. So that it's a little bit low, like the chin hangs down.
Yeah.
But it's a costume. In 2010, my daughter wanted to be Buttercup for Halloween. So I'm like, well, if she's going to be Buttercup, I got to be one of the villains. And I was too fat to be him. I love him. Him's just incredibly funny. So the next best one to me was Mojo Jojo. And when I looked up ideas on Mojo Jojo costumes online, they're all bad. It's all just a guy with like a monkey face on and like a little helmet. It's like, Mojo Jojo is all brain, a little face, and a tiny body. Like the proportions are all wrong. So then I had to make a Mojo Jojo costume that was actually proportionate, where when I'm standing in it, you know, the brain is like the top of my head to about my belly.
Wow.
And then the face is down around my crotch, and then my hands are kind of like this. But
Oh,
it works for like this is where his shoulder is. So yeah, so I made it proportional, and I went and we made a Halloween video. So if you look up Rick Shick YouTube, there's a 2010 Halloween video that I made with my kids, where Buttercup teams up with Spider-Man and Buzz Lightyear, because those were the costumes my kids wanted to be that year, and they beat up Mojo Jojo.
Mojo is one of my favorites. Like, he's best.
So good.
He's my favorite of the show.
And he was awesome in the movie, in the Powerpuff Girls movie. So good. That was a beautiful movie, highly underrated.
I know they was trying to make a Powerpuff Girls TV show, and all I cared about was like, are you going to do Mojo Jojo? Because you can't do it without him. You have to.
Yeah.
Now, what got you into? Because I checked out your IMDb, and I was fascinated with the amount of work you have done over the years, and the amount of work that you've done on shows that I have been in love with for years. That
awesome.
You know, and I was so taken back with a few of them, especially Dark Angel. Dark Angel is hands down one of my favorite shows growing up. Yeah. I have Jessica Alba figure of her on the bike, and I have a couple of her figures still Mitch.
Oh my gosh!
Because I love the show a lot, and it was just a great show. What type of work did you do on that?
So back then, I would have been either recently I had gone. So my first real job in the industry. Well, okay, sorry. My very, very first thing in the industry was I was a casting assistant for Roger Corman, and a bunch of his B movies. But the very first one was a Fantastic Four movie.
I was just about to say that.
So I did that as a casting assistant. And then I was shopping around my artwork. I had an art portfolio that I would carry around, like a big valise that I would carry around to different places and try to show off, here's what I've done. Can I get a job making movies or TV? And most places, like I remember going to Rhythm and Hues. I remember going to the Kyoto Brothers specifically because I thought they were both really cool. And being told, you know, that's nice. You've done nice things, but once you've done something for TV, let us know. And so I did that for about a year and a half in LA trying to get a job. And then I got hired on Power Rangers. So they were growing and they needed more artists.
Right.
I was an artist who had no experience in TV or film, so I was dirt cheap. And I was happy to be there. And it was an incredible, incredible experience because we did so many different things. We were allowed to be so creative in coming up with solutions. Our boss was super creative. And if there was a chance to do something that we wanted to do, he's like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Because he wanted to do different fun things too. He was into whatever. So while I was working there, I got good enough that like freelancers would come through when we were super busy. I mean, it seemed like we were always busy, but when we were extra busy, freelancers would come through and then we'd talk to them like, well, what are you doing? Where are you working? What else is going on? So if you were friends with a freelancer and they were offered something they couldn't do, hey, give Rick a call. So I started freelancing on the side. And at the time, I had worked for Encore Video. I'd gone and worked for them a few times. And this was, I believe, it must have been after Power Rangers because I think I was working during the day as a staff artist on Power Rangers and for a company called Modern Video Film. Maybe I was on other projects, but at night I would freelance. And Encore Video was a place that someone recommended me to someone, and I went in and I did a good enough job that they brought me back a bunch. And I just worked on a raft of 80s TV shows. So like things would just come through. So Dark Angel, I don't have any specific memories of that whatsoever. I imagine I worked on a few episodes.
Right.
It's sort of the same thing with Charmed. I do have one memory of one shot in my head. But it's a sort of thing where I'd probably have to, if I watched it, I might remember something, but I never really watched Charmed. I never watched Dark Angel. So Dark Angel, I mean, I like, there are things like Power Rangers where I worked on entire seasons, and that's all I did all day long. So if there's an episode, I either touched something in it, or I didn't work on that episode because I was jam-packed on the next episode. So there was a lot more work on that stuff. And the freelance work at night would be a few days on this, a few days on that. And even while I was freelancing, I'd maybe sometimes spend half a day on one shot for one show and half a day on one shot for another show, where it's like, hey, just finish this up. As a freelancer in those days, it was more like you'd come in at night when the staff guys were done, and sometimes you'd have a continuing shot. Sometimes you just finish up something they started.
Now,
so I wish I had a better Dark Angel story, but I don't.
No, it's the fact that you haven't worked on it is just awesome. You know, like I said, it was one of my favorite shows. I know you done work on Big Bad Beetleborgs, and shout outs to Herbie Baez. You know, I had him on the show a while back. Great guy.
He? Which one's he?
He was the green Beetleborg, then he was the silver Beetleborg. So he's great guy.
He's the one who was virtually ready.
Say again?
Was he JB?
No, that was, you know what? That's VR Troopers.
Oh, VR Troopers. I got the wrong show in my head. Oh, the green Beetleborg.
You were doing all these shows quite a bit all at the same time. You did the Masked Rider.
Well, Saban was our main client.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, the Green Ranger. Gotcha. He was the one who could run fast. Or not? I said Green Ranger. The Green Beetleborg was the one who could run fast.
Yes, he did.
Gotcha.
Now, using doing I know I saw the video in the past show interviews you had. You showed how you created the Zord morphs, and back and forth, and you actually had to go get the toys.
Yeah.
And, like, how many other instances like that in those type of shows that you had to go buy the toy to do a scene, to do these sequences type stuff?
I mean, there was the Thunder Zord, or the Dragon Zord to Thunder Zord morphing sequence. There's Titanus, when Titanus and I believe the Shogun Zord and whatever the Zeo thing was, whatever they called that. Right. Those never went together in the Japanese, so we shot that. That we actually shot in our basement at work. The Zord sequence, I guess Titanus is a Zord. The Dinozord to Thunder Zord. I know that the Super Power Ranger guys will get on me for that. You messed that up.
Yeah.
So the Dinozord to Thunder Zord transformation, we actually shot that at the Saban Studios, but the Titanus one was a smaller shoot. It was less ambitious, and so that we just shot in our basement at work. Our basement was a parking structure, and we had like 2 spots near the elevator that we could like cordon off if we knew we were going to be shooting something that day or that night. And so that's where that one was done. Other times there were toys, for Masked Rider, there was the car that he drives.
Yes.
It starts out as a bug and then turns into a car.
Right.
I guess that didn't happen in the Japanese. Mm-hmm. So I actually looked at the car and I sold it to someone a couple years ago. Probably should have kept it. I made a sculpture of the car as a bug. And that's the model that they use to do a CG. It's a CG bug that climbs out. I do know at one point, I believe it's not in Beetleborg. In Beetleborgs, like, I would sculpt little things. So those weren't really toys that we were using. In Beetleborgs, they did send us the models from Japan. Mm-hmm. And we did a scan. We had to actually go to a different company that would scan them. Now you just take your phone or a little equipment and scan it. But back then, you actually had to go to a studio where all they did was scan stuff. So they scanned the Beetleborg vehicles, and then those were animated in CG. We had a CG department at that time to do that. There's some bugs. I think it might be Beetleborgs. There's some bugs. There's 3 bugs that dig into the ground. and I can't remember why, but I remember that was a giant practical shoot that I was super excited to do. And I have that in my reel. Like I have archives of footage, and it's something that I haven't cut up yet to put into one of our episodes of Behind the Power VFX with Rick Shick.
Yes, it's a great show.
Yeah, right. So I think I'm trying to remember if those were toys or if those were something I sculpted, but it was actually really fun when you talk about liking practical. Yeah. We had to have these bugs dig into the dirt. It makes me think it's maybe Masked Rider because that was very bug-like.
I feel like it was. I feel like that was a Masked Rider because they were bugs.
Yeah, but Beetleborgs were also bugs. So.
Yeah,
But basically, we needed these bugs to dig into dirt, and we didn't know how to do it. And so my idea was to get a big cardboard box, and on top of the box, put some sod down, and then we could score some holes in the box, like a little square shape that we cut. Then take the bug and put a wire on him and pull him toward the hole and pull him down in through the grass. But at the same time, in the box below would be someone in the box with a hose, like a vacuum cleaner, packed with dirt on reverse. So one person's pulling the string that pulls the bug down in, at the same time that the bug breaks through, this hose is right there to shoot dirt out and then pull the bug in. So it looks like the bug is digging.
Yeah.
So once we had shot that, and that was an element that we just shot in our basement at work.
Wow.
And once we had that, and that was like really fun to work all that out. And once we had that, then I drew little legs and then animated them on the side of the bug. So like two legs are in back kind of pushing him, and then the front legs start going like this, like they're digging, just to tie it all together. And it's the whole thing of, what can you do what can you do practically? What can you do 2D? What can you do 3D? Like just bringing those different solutions together. And I remember being so excited about that we had done like a big practical thing. I thought that was really cool.
To hear all that, it sounds so cool. And I can't wait to the moment you get to post that on your show. And I love stuff like that. I don't know why, as you're speaking of this stuff and talking about how you did it, all I could think of was I don't know if you remember the show back in the day. It was called Movie Magic. Oh
yeah, totally.
I love that show. And as you're speaking of it, I was just like, why don't they bring Movie Magic back? Because I would have loved to see some of this stuff. Like, this is great. This is great, like, information. Now, when it came to doing that for the show, did they have to say Saban or whoever your boss, did they judge it first and then I don't like it, can you do this again, or were they pretty much satisfied with the work right off the bat?
Yeah, I think especially at the beginning, at least the beginning for me, which was the second season, not the first season.
Right.
It seemed like they didn't really care as long as we got it done. So it would be monster appears, monster disappears. And there wasn't a lot of, it's not like they were worried, what is this going to look like?
Right.
And so it was up to us to make stuff up. So frequently we were constantly making stuff up. And like I said, my boss liked trying things. So I remember there's like a pachinko machine monster, and I don't know who had the idea, but it seemed like a fun idea of make an outline of the pachinko guy.
Right.
Once again, you'd have like a board that's a certain color. Maybe it's green. I don't think we did green. I have white in my mind, but I don't remember. But say it's a green board with a walled outline of the pachinko guys, and then we rolled balls down into it to fill up that shape. And then that became how the pachinko guy appears.
Wow.
And it's sort of cheesy, and it didn't really work, but it kind of worked, but it was good enough. And so, all right, next.
Were there times where you were looking at things like these, when they give you the footage and to tell you what, kind of what they want, and you see some of the creatures what am I doing? Where am I working going? What is this?
No, it was fun because like Beetleborgs, they open up the comic book and then some monster's supposed to come out. And so I remember one was a snaky guy and his snake head's going like this. So instead of just taking a still frame of his head from the B side of the footage, because the A side is when he's not there, and then you edit, and then B side, boop, he's there. But I would take some of that animation of his head, I would roto around it so I could get some of that movement, and then I would loop that. So when he comes out of the comic book and it's small, it's a little moving snake head. And then then the camera moves and it jumps back and it turns into the big one. So like with Beetleborgs, it just as our abilities grew and as the software became more capable and we had more ideas, it was like, oh, I bet instead of just a still frame, I can have this moving, or I can do, or like even there's and this is going to be one of the episodes coming up soon. There's like a Rasta Safarian monkey monster in Power Rangers, and it starts out there's like a chimpanzee sitting on a chair,
right? And
some guy like puts a hat on him and maybe puts sunglasses on him, and he gets hit by lightning, and so that's lightning that I drew, and we draw the lightning frame at a time. But then the monster guy is much bigger than the chimp. So I cut out the individual pieces of the monster guy, and I'm just like looking at the monster guy like, this is ridiculous. But here's an opportunity to do a morph where I take the big pieces and I can shrink them down to the chimpanzee size. And then I can make the chimpanzee grow because I can cut him out and make him get bigger. And so I can start doing like a fake morph with these different pieces that are going to end up in the right place, and then hide a lot of it with electricity over it. So you don't even see all the bad edges as much, Now,
you did the sequences with the Z-Putties as well, right?
Yes, yeah. When they get hit in the chest and break apart, I would do the stop motion of them breaking apart. And another artist, I always want to be fair when I can, another artist, Trent Shumway, he did some of them, but I think I did most of them. And then there was a time where I had switched away, and then I wasn't around, and he was there, and he did the stop motion. I don't know. He might have a different memory of it, but I think that that's part of the reason they hired me. It was because I could sculpt.
Yes.
And so they already had in their minds, hey, we want to do the stop motion. This kid has shown us some sculptures he can do. He can do the putty breaks for us. And then I come in, they're like, hey, so we're going to need you to do the stop motion. I'm like, oh, awesome. That's so cool.
I've always been able to point out the stop motion stuff, like in shows and movies, because I've always been a big fan of the stop motion, like the Kyoto's brothers, like they had some of that in Killer Clowns in Outer Space.
Yeah, which there's a new video game out.
Yes, they are. Yes,
my friend Dave Bergantino wrote it. He wrote the game. He wrote the dialogue or the storyline. Yeah. He's an awesome writer.
Matter of fact, speaking.
I saw him. I see him there. Yep, my friend Dave had the big clown head. He had one of the masks for a while.
Yeah. Oh man,
he had the actual animatronic from the show.
That is so cool. Like
super cool.
It's one of those movies that somehow like everybody's kind of waiting for a sequel, but then for me, I know kind of scared if they do get a sequel. It's like, are we gonna like it?
Yeah.
Like it's been so much time, and like will it ruin?
Right.
Something.
It's all a matter of who's writing it. I'd say more than anything, is it someone who loves it or someone who's just got lucky and they were asked to do it and they don't know anything about it? But like my buddy, he would write an awesome sequel. Like I know it'd be good because he's so into it and he gets it. And his sense of humor is perfect for it. But I mean, there have been plenty of remakes that like. What was it? There's a Ghostbusters game that I played with my kids, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, where they're like in a building and they're running around and it was good. It was a much better story than any of the subsequent movies.
Yeah, they because
I forget what version that was.
I have the game. Actually, I do have the game of that.
Yeah.
So they remade it and put it out for Switch and whatnot.
Gotcha.
But sometimes video game sequels to like IPs are sometimes a lot better.
Yeah.
Than what we get as the actual movie. And then sometimes be like, why can't they put some of this or just strictly take it from the game and make it, expound on it. But they never do. But that's why I think the games do so well because people like, this is they can live it out better in that.
You feel like you're living more in the story that you originally liked, yeah.
Yeah.
And they add to the universe in a way that makes sense or feels right.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I got my proton pack right over here myself, but
Nice.
now, like seeing different works that you've done, it took me off guard when I looked at one because one of the shows I like watching, and it was P-Valley, and I was like, wait, what kind of I should know like they yes, they have to do certain shots and do compositing or whatnot, CGI or certain things, but it kind of threw me off. I was like, they need that much work on that show.
Oh yeah. I mean that's one of the things with filmmaking today. They really don't need to be as careful about what they're shooting, and it can be, well, you know what, time's running out, we got to get a shot, someone will fix this later, or someone can put something in there. And if there's a supervisor on set, sometimes there isn't even a supervisor on set. We're always happy when there is a supervisor on set.
Yeah.
But a supervisor can look at what they're doing and say, yes, we can change that later. And that way they don't have to do a whole new setup and bring 20 other people and shoot something another day. So it might be a little bit more on our shoulders sometimes, but it ends up being easier in the long run. Or sometimes it's just the time of day. Like the first season of P-Valley, there's the first couple episodes, there's a lot of cotton fields.
Right.
And it wasn't cotton season at all. So we actually, if you go back and watch it, all those cotton fields, we made those. Those were not there.
Oh, wow. Okay, because I remember the episode, seeing that, and I'm like, wow, this whole not knowing that. Wow.
Yeah, there might be like 6 bushes in the foreground, and that's it. And then the big field, even the big harvester rolling along, plowing it up, that cotton isn't there. And so that's stuff we put in. There's a bar fight, and the stunt man is much larger than the actor, and the hair doesn't match. And we tried to redo his hair to make it match. Sometimes it's building extensions. One of my favorites is, I think it's one of the first, maybe it's episode 2. There's a car wash that they do.
Yes.
The main character has a flashback to the storm.
Right.
The suds coming down, we shot those suds in my backyard and in my front yard. So on set, they just couldn't get enough suds to come down. They couldn't get what they wanted.
Right.
So that's another situation where it's like, okay, we're not getting what we want. Can you guys do this later? Yes, we can do this later. Okay, great. We're going to go on to the next scene. So I end up, and I have some of the, actually, I think it's on my website, my rickshick.com. There's some behind the scenes stuff on my website. I have some behind the scenes photos, and some of it is the setup that my buddy Nico came from work, and he was a cameraman, and he and I set up all these C-stands and put up a blue screen and made a big fake piece of plexiglass that was a stand-in for the windshield, and made a big trough to spill a bunch of suds. So we're like foaming up the suds and figuring out how sudsy it's going to be. And basically we spent a day shooting this. And even there's one shot in particular I'm really proud of. So when you're watching it and she starts freaking out, she's in the car, she's like rubbing the back of the seat. She's like looking around, and the suds start coming down. It looks great. Yes. You would never guess that was a visual effect. And we put that in there. So I'm already excited about that. But then I'm even more excited because she slides down the windshield. She comes out the sunroof, slides down the windshield of that Cadillac, and jumps off. Those suds aren't there. So not only did we we parked my wife's car on my front yard, aiming at the sun to get the angle right. And then my daughter was inside the car, pushing a blue screen against the window as tight as she could, so we won't get funny shadows on the blue screen, because if the blue screen's loose, you're going to get some weird shadows from the suds coming down. So she's just in the car pushing as hard as she can. And then my buddy's like throwing the suds down, or maybe I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it. Or throwing the suds down the front of my wife's car. And then I have a big sponge, and I'm sliding it down the window right after the suds, thinking like, okay, I'm acting like her butt sliding down the window, so that we can get an appropriate streak as well. Right. So when you the shot's really fast, it goes by quick. But the fact that you would never even think to notice are those, you just assume the suds are there. And to get that level of interactivity with me just squishing a sponge down, that's like pretty much where her butt is. It just worked. It worked so well. And I was so excited. And we didn't have to go into CG and do a Houdini simulation and figure out 18 layers of bubbles. And that's one of the things with CG is it opens a door for the client to make comments about every little thing.
Right.
But if you tell them, look, we did a shoot, then they don't say much because they're like, well, you can't just change a couple of bubbles over here and a couple of bubbles over there and maybe it's like, no, this is what the bubbles are really doing.
Right.
So it kind of locks them in to a degree on their comments.
I now have to go back and watch it now.
That's what I just did recently because it came on Prime. I have Prime, but I don't have whatever was originally on. I'm like, oh, I got to go find those. I got to go find those suds because I remember being really excited. And then I watched it in the scene. I'm like, yeah, it totally works. It's awesome.
Yeah, I remember the episode vividly because, I remember that scene. But now I really got to go back because it's the little details that you really don't think of, like suds.
Yeah.
That,
you wouldn't think of it.
No, it's water.
We don't want you to notice it's an effect, Because
I definitely will understand, say it's a car wash and you can clearly see the car wasn't, no water's on the car at all. And you try to understand it. I can clearly get that part and I can pick it really fast. But the fact that there was suds, and I'm not even thinking that it's, post and everything else. I'm thinking it's right then and there. Like, she was, they just had a water hose at the moment. That's amazing that you can do that. That's the subtleties of that to be, to make sure everything is connecting well and to be and you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's some work that we're really proud of. That kind of stuff. I love doing that. Oh, I believe it's the last couple episodes of season 1. They're driving in the car and money's flying out.
Yeah.
The car is just sitting in a parking lot. It's not driving down the road.
Okay. So what about the money being thrown? Is the fake money being thrown?
There's some money, but there's also some CG money coming out. And I remember they did send us a box of 250,000 fake dollars.
Yeah.
And we used some of that. I think she dumps out a bunch of money at some guy. She's like, I'm buying the land or whatever.
Yes.
It wasn't enough money. And we added a bunch of money to that. And it was a shoot that we did in our office at work to just make a bigger pile of money. And then we, put that in. It's 2-dimensional. It's not always. There's also bills falling. I think someone's dancing.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of bills falling. I think that might have been some CG money. So it depends what is simpler. And that was one of the things when I worked at the company that did that. It was really nice because I'd been obviously in the business for a long time. So if I was like, yeah, I think we can do this for real, they'd actually listen to me and then we go do it for real. And so it's great. And they were happy because it saved them money. If they don't have to do something CG, it's usually far less expensive to get it done.
Wow, that is amazing. Just the little things like that.
Yeah.
Like a pile of money. You did that work on a pile of money, and it's just it looked real to me.
Yeah, awesome.
I know I know it's fake money, but I didn't know the amount of it.
Right.
Was put in there later. That's really creative.
And that's where they had what they had on set, and it's all they had. And then they decided. See, that's something where in 20 years ago, that just would have been it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's can you add more money to that? Yeah. You know what? You got fake money. Send it over, and we can add it into the show.
Oh, now. Has it been a project that you've been what's the most proudest project you've done, where you that you just dang, I did really good on that. That was I killed that one. That was my favorite. What's your favorite project that you've done over the years? You've done so much. There's been a lot. There's been a lot that I've been excited about when something works and
there's a point where, okay, so I'd say Zathura was one like that.
The movie, yeah.
Because like that was a show where a movie where instead of being hired at the end when everything's on fire and it's like, oh my gosh, we got to get these done. And I started out at the beginning on that show and worked all the way through it. And I got to draw electricity in it. There was a moment where someone had done a shot and they'd used an electricity generator where you like set a point, you set another point, and then it automates electricity between it. And then you can kind of adjust the parameters, but it kind of looks like that's exactly what you did. It doesn't look like it's really conforming to what's in the scene. And I remember seeing it in dailies where we're sitting in a big theater watching our work on the movie screen. And, you know, they're giving comments and whatever. And I like say to my buddy, I'm like, I can do better than that. And he's like, well, why don't you? I'm like, well, can I? I don't know. Like, am I supposed, like, I don't want to, am I going to step on someone's toes? And they're like, no, like, why don't you get, so then it's like, hey, I used to draw electricity. Can I do some of the electricity shots? So they give me one to try to see how I do. And from that point on, they gave me the rest of the electricity shots.
Wow.
Because they just wanted me to draw it all. And I loved it. It's so much fun doing that. Because when you're drawing it by hand, you can really integrate it to the scene really quickly. You can quickly make it crawl around whatever is in the, you know, crawl over my whole body or whatever. And to do that in the computer is a lot more difficult. There's more points that you have to tell it, where basically you're trying to convince the computer what your brain would decide to do, when I just know what my brain would do and I can just do it because I've spent enough time drawing it. I know how to do that. And I know other artists who are still totally awesome at doing that sort of stuff. So Zathura was really cool to do that. Also, there's a behind the scenes shot on my website of in that movie, there's a robot that's chasing a kid. And the kid's running, and then the robot comes after him, and he bursts through a doorway, and then he bursts through another doorway. And when it was a really, that like you're talking about being proud, that was a moment in dailies where they showed the different layers that they had shot of like the different doorways blowing up, and the kid, and then the guy in the robot suit, and none of it lined up. The camera work was all different. And they showed it all, and they're like, okay, Rick, this is your next shot. We'll talk to you in a month. Like the fact that they're just like, okay, we're giving this to you and we're trusting that you're going to make this thing work that we don't know how to make it work. You know, like that. And then the fact that once you start showing them that, okay, I can make all these elements work.
Right.
And then there's like not even a thank you. It's just like, oh, okay, now this, and you got to make this and this. Like when they skip the major malfunction that you've fixed, and then they start looking at all the details that make it look, you know, this is going to be perfect. Then you know you've done your job, because like, oh, no one's even questioning that, oh yeah, these elements that we didn't know how they were going to work together, and now they just magically are. Like, I'm the magic. It's like, that's such a great feeling. Like, I did the magic. Oh, it's really fun. That's like part of the job that I love, is doing the magic, that like solving the problem that sometimes people aren't really sure because they're not spending the time with it. Like you, as an artist, occasionally you spend the time with it to figure it out. Or as a supervisor, you're figuring it out and then helping artists implement what you've what you want them to do. And when you see that come together, that's awesome. Like the bird thing. I mean, I got the sweetest compliment from the guy who was on set, because he's like, I didn't know how we were going to do this. I didn't know how this was going to look. And he's like, I've worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, and like, this is the most exciting thing to me because no one's ever going to know it's a visual effect.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I'm so happy that this worked out. I'm like, cool, thanks. He's like, I'm watching. I'm like, I can't even tell where you did anything.
That's the best thing about it. That's the best.
Yeah, it is. And that's a great feeling. It's a huge sense of accomplishment. I love that.
Before we go, for others, like my past, you know, now you make me, I wish I would have like done work more like that when I was younger. Like, start now. Do it. Make your own stuff. I'm only, you know what? I've done like props, like for cosplay. You know,
that's great.
you know, and I've helped a friend of mine with his little movie he did back when we were like in college. But, you know, I made the props for it. But you know, when it comes to like the big stuff like you're doing and stuff, it's like, man, I need some years. I wish I had some years to go back and just, you know, do that type of work, because hearing that, it's just the suds gets me. Just the suds, man. Just the suds. And like the little things like that you can do that makes a big difference that you don't think about, and it's subtle. The subtleties but it's a big impact for the project that you're doing, because if it's not there, then it doesn't look great.
Right. It doesn't work. The scene doesn't work without it.
It just doesn't. What type of advice do you have for those that, you know, the kids, you know, that want to do this professionally? You know, they see your work, they watch this interview, they hear it, you know, and they want to do it. What kind of advice do you give those kids?
You know, there's the only thing holding you back from making something right now is yourself. There's nothing else holding anyone back at this point, because the technology to make something on your phone is there, and it can be impressive too. And I would say that, like, and this is something that I taught my daughter, who's she's an amazing artist. She is a way better illustrator than I'll ever be. She is such a good artist. But I had to help her with, like, I hired her for some earlier projects I've done, and to do some of the art. Like, we made a movie for a kids museum in St. Louis, and the movie is all her artwork integrated with live action. I did all the visual effects, I put it all together, but she did all the initial drawings, and so all of the pieces of animation start with her drawings. And my thing to her was, finish it. Like she's like studying it. Like, we needed, like, you're supposed to go through a digestive system in this. Right. It's for a children's health museum, where, like, a dentist, like, you're inside a mouth, so there's a row of teeth at the top of the screen and a row of teeth at the bottom, and, like, you know, you're talking like this, and then the dentist comes in and looks in your mouth, right? He brushes your teeth, and then you eat an apple, and then you go down into the whole digestive system. So she's like studying drawings and pictures of intestines. And I'm like, honey, I need the intestines. We got to go on this scene. And she's like, well, I'm like, start with something. You got to just draw something so that I can comment on it, so that then we can go forward. Because if you're all in your head, then you don't do anything. It's got to come out of your head and onto a piece of paper or into a sculpture or something. And then that's something that you can show somebody. Right. And so very early, and she made a Lego movie, a Lego City movie. And oh my gosh, I was in LA working on something. I come home to New Jersey, and she's like 80% done with this Lego stop motion movie that she's made. And it's awesome. And, like, my two sons are some of the voices in it. It's so cute. I love it. And I'm like, finish it. Finish your story. Don't make the story any longer. Have a big chase or a big fight, but resolve your story so that it has a beginning and a middle and an end. You need an end. And so I just kind of pushed her to finish it. And I love it. It's so good. So I think if you can make something, if you're making a movie, you're making a video, if you make 5 seconds that looks amazing, that's better than 20 minutes that look like crap. Where you like, well, you're going to caveat this, and this isn't so great, and I know this part. So we're going to make whatever it is, whatever you're doing, make it look great, polish it, and get it, even if it's a short little thing. But if you have the start of an idea, everyone has ideas. There are millions of ideas. It's actually working on that idea. It's presenting that idea so someone else can see it and see what you were thinking. That's where I think that's where successful people go, is they've got it done, you know?
That's true. Yeah, that's
so just
true.
Go for it, man. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how old you are. If you want to start doing something, like I used to, this is something else I totally forgot about. I used to do prosthetics when I was little. So now I think there was at Toys R Us, there was a Dick Smith monster makeup kit, and I still have the molds. But I've made molds of that in the past 10 years, and I did a prosthetic on my son for Halloween because they said no masks at school. Maybe this was like 6 years ago. Right. But they're like, oh, you can't wear a mask at school. And I look at him, I'm like, can't wear a mask? I'm going to glue it to your face and let's see them tell you no. And so it's like this nose and cheek and an eyebrow. And he ended up looking like a human Squidward. Like it was sort of horrifying. He looked like a little old man, but it was so awesome. And he loved it. And I mean, I think he loved it. I know I loved it. But sounds like great. No one told him no. No one made him take it off because it was all stuck to his face and it moved with him. And so it was really fun.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Where can they find you, sir?
All right.
To watch the show.
Yeah.
And where can they find you? And just all your socials if you got them.
Sure. So, my website is rickshick.com. RickShick. There's not an extra C in there. So that has some of my more recent stuff and my most recent reel, which is maybe only 7 years out of date instead of 16 years out of date. That's kind of how it goes with guys like us. And studios are less willing to give the work away like they used to. It used to be easier to get your own shots. Now it's a big deal to try to get your work. Sometimes you have to get it off of, like, once it's streaming or in a film or on a DVD, then you can rip it and then you can have your work. So rickshick.com. I'm Shick Rick on Instagram, and that's where we're posting a lot of Power Rangers stuff. We're doing like, we can put people in the scenes from the original show because I have the original background footage. So we can actually put you in the real morphing sequence. I'm drawing lightning on pictures for people because I drew it for the show. Yes. So if I draw lightning on your cosplay or whatever, it's just like it was in the show because I'm one of the original guys who drew it. And then the latest is our YouTube show, our first episode with super special guest star Hunter Dino. I feel like I was the guest. It's the Hunter Dino show. Like, go see it for her. But it's called Behind the Power VFX with me.
It was a great episode. I watched it.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
It was a great episode.
Yeah, doesn't it look good? They make me look so cool. I can't believe it. I'm just some nerd. I don't know.
You had this comment. You had the masked writer behind you. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I need that.
Oh, yeah,
I've never seen that before.
He's either here or no, he's in my kitchen. He's in our kitchen.
I've never seen one that size, and I'm like, I didn't know. So I was scouring like the internet for it. I was nothing fit, but I was trying to find from there. I was like, okay, it was made. It is behind him.
Yep.
Where is it?
Yeah, I got it at some point in the 90s. I also have a little Furbus.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. The Furby. Little Furbus. Yes. Found out, that was Vern Troyer. Didn't know that.
Yeah, Vernon Troyer was Furbus. Yep.
Oh my God, there's so many Easter eggs in that show for the history of that. Man, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
For coming on the show and just showing up and showing out and just giving us so much like wealth of knowledge. And I know I'm just like buzzed about some of the things you said already. And also, just thank you for contributing to my childhood.
You're very welcome. Yep.
That
it was a fun job. Making your childhood was a very fun job, I gotta say.
Yes, I mean, the people, the heroes that we don't see behind the scenes, like yourself, are the ones that really did the work for to help us out, to grow and be better people. So I really appreciate what you've done, with your work and everything, and what you're doing even now. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Thanks for having me here. I'm a little chatterbox, so I'm more than happy to talk, and I'll bore you to death with stories. So
we got to get you back on again. We got to get you back on again because it's so much. It's so much that we could talk about for real. Well, thank you so much, sir, for being on. Oh my God, Rick Shick, everybody, please follow him. Go to his website, check out his behind the scenes work. Check out his show on YouTube. What's the name of it? I'm so sorry.
Behind the Power VFX.
Behind the Power VFX is a really great show. Trust me, the episode is great. And if you guys see the episode and you see the Masked Rider behind him, and you know where you can find it, let me know so I can buy it. Just saying, because I need to find that, and I need it part of my collection. Okay, but thank you guys so much for watching this show. Depending on how you're digesting this, do visually on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple, for your listening pleasure. Thank you guys so much. And without further ado, I like to say, bear it all, be yourself. This is the BearatNight podcast. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Peace.
You are now listening to BearatNight podcast with your host, Jurassic Parker.